that Keiko's not here today. She just wasn't available. So it'll be just us for today. But getting started, everyone's here. We're all well. We've been over that. But we thought we'd like to start out today just with some fun little trivia. So there's no points and there's no teams. It's just some fun for everybody if you want to try to answer these questions. We are hoping that people will try and answer the questions. So if everyone doesn't mind unmuting and just shouting out the answer if you see it. But our first question for a very short little trivia is how many paintings did Van Gogh sell in his lifetime?
I feel like it was a small amount because he got famous after he died.
3?
3 is a good guess.
Was it 1?
It is 1. He sold
There
one
we go.
painting in his entire life. Yeah. And then when Salvador Dali was in Paris, which fellow painter did he become friends with?
I want to say Picasso.
Picasso is right. That's another very good guess. Or I shouldn't say guess. You might have known.
Oh no, I didn't. That was totally a guess.
And then I tried to find some trivia questions that related sort of to what we're learning. And so you've seen the sort of Black Power fist that's been used as a symbol in Black Lives Matter protests. But what group originally developed it in the 1960s?
The Black Panthers?
Correct again. But there's a bonus question here. And can anyone name where its first and most famous use was?
Was it the Cuban liberation?
Cuban liberation might be close, but it's not the answer that I found briefly Googling.
Was it the human rights protests in Washington, D.C.?
In what year?
Oh god.
1969, I believe.
Oh, that's
1968?
close. What I found is that its first use was the 1968 Mexico City Olympic Games with the two famous sprinters on the Olympic podium.
Oh yeah, and then there was that guy who gave them the gloves, and they shared the one pair of gloves.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah.
And so here's one that more falls sort of towards Lucas's category. What famous article in 1966 about Frank? Who wrote a famous article in 1966 about Frank Sinatra without meeting him? Hopefully, you should all know this if you've been progressing through Lucas's modules.
I have trouble remembering names, but I did read the article.
I remember the article. Yeah, Frank Sinatra has a cold.
Something to leave, was it?
What was?
Something like it started with G. Was it Talese?
Yes, it's Gay Talese. Very good one.
Nice.
Um,
Here we go.
And so this is a less fun one. What is the systematic denial of various services directly or through the selective raising of prices known as?
What?
Inflation?
Inflation, close. This is more of a systematic discrimination based on denying services to particular areas and cities.
Oh, redlining?
Very good.
Yep, there we go.
And then this one, this is more of a language one. What art word, that's a terrible description, what kind of art comes from the French word to glue or to stick together?
Collage.
Collage, that's very good. Now, can anyone, except for Alex, because I think even though we're not counting, she's very clearly winning, can anyone tell us what French word that comes from? What's the base word?
Dang it, I know French, but I can't.
If no one else has it, I can. It's collier, I think it's pronounced, for to glue.
Yeah.
That is correct again.
I did immersion as a
French
kid,
immersion
so
got
I'm.
this.
Right, I think we just got a couple more questions to go through just to warm up today. So what element of Da Vinci's Last Supper was removed by some careless builders?
Was it Judas?
It was not Judas.
Okay.
Mary Magdalene?
Not quite. It's not a whole person. It's actually an element of a person.
I'm guessing it was someone's hair.
man. I remember watching the Da Vinci Code and they were talking about this. I can't remember.
Hair is a good guess. It was actually Jesus's feet.
Oh.
Why did they remove it?
Incompetence?
Okay.
Someone's just like, I don't think Jesus has feet, and everyone's like, okay, and they painted over it.
Could
Not
be.
religious at all, but I'm like, I guess that's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So in traditional Chinese art, what does the crane usually symbolize?
Patience or wisdom? Something like that.
Good guess. I think that's close, but we might be able to find something closer.
I don't know. Oh God. All that's coming to mind is this young adult book I read like a long time ago. That is probably not related at all.
Well, we found that generally it symbolizes long life.
Oh.
And then this is our last one just for today. The last 2D animated Disney movie.
Princess and the Frog.
The Princess and the Frog is a good guess, but it's not correct.
Wait. Oh God, which one is it?
Was it Up? No.
No.
No, we're looking for one that was animated entirely in 2 dimensions, not with.
Is it Winnie the Pooh?
It is Winnie the Pooh.
Oh.
Very good. And then bonus points to anyone that can give me the year that it was released.
I'm gonna guess 2010 or 2011.
2010
Was
is
it the
close.
current one?
2011 is correct.
9.
There we go.
Very well done, everyone. That was really good. That was, you all know so much more than I did when I was looking this up. So moving on from our little warm-up check-in, I think today we're going to be focusing again on systems change for a little leadership aspect at the beginning. And we'd like to go and continue talking about the importance of systems change. And so with that, I'd like to hand it over to Trinity to talk a little bit about chalk activism.
All right, yeah, so I'm just gonna share screen. So this is a case study on chalk activism, and yeah. So let me pull up my notes. So Gabriel Fabian lived in the small city of Sela in Washington, but despite his previous lack of political activism, he was stirred to action by the video that captured the arrest, which led to George Floyd's death. So, as a form of raising awareness, Fabian created chalk murals outside his home, but days later, I think at the end of the week, it was rinsed away by the city. Undaunted, Fabian and a group of friends and neighborhood children continued to create murals, but the city was washing them away like 15 hours later, like really fast. Since they were frustrated with this response, Fabian's family reached out to the Sela City School District, which agreed to allow the residents to create chalk art in the middle of the school parking lot. However, a letter from the police chief was sent to Fabian's older brother, and it warned that chalk art was considered graffiti and could result in citation, with the municipal attorney giving a more detailed warning. The drawings were a violation of the malicious mischief statute that was punishable by 364 days in jail and a $5,000 fine. Remember, again, this is chalk art. This was something they were washing away pretty quickly. The mayor of Sela has reportedly mocked the local Black Lives Matter movement and denied its calls for action, saying that its leaders are evil, bad actors who have no knowledge of justice, while other administrators deny the presence of racial issues. Nonetheless, the Black Lives Matter movement persists in Sela, with the Fabians currently working with a lawyer who says that the city's targeted cleaning of the protest messages has amounted to an infringement on free speech. Courtney Hernandez, a Black activist and organizer of the Black Lives Matter rallies, has been encouraged by the turnout of their events, which now often feature chalk art. Meanwhile, many white neighbors have voiced their support for Fabian, offering their driveways and homes for him to draw on. The Fabians have noted that the murals have successfully started conversations about race and racism with their neighbors and the others who have been inspired with their murals. Basically, we brought this up because it's a story that highlights the need for perseverance in this enduring cycle of systems change. Large institutions, as you all know, will often resist social change, and this can demoralize individuals who are calling for it. However, the Fabians have garnered support, and they've even been featured in an article for the New York Times. Much of the community of Sela has come together to help them out, and they're determined to succeed. Their local government has stood against them, but Fabian has said that they will not stop and will continue until the city council changes. So that is the end of this very quick presentation. I'm going to stop sharing right now. And so for this, sorry, switch things up here. So for today, we're gonna look at this case study, and the first part of this activity, we're going to split you up into groups, and then can I get a show of hands? Who here remembers the diagram for systems change and the inverted pyramid thing? No one remembers them. That is absolutely fine because, oh, okay. I will be sending a picture of it. I'll be sending pictures of these diagrams to everyone and a list of events that kind of occurred in this case study. And we're gonna split you up, and then we want you to sort the events into both where they fall on the diagram systems change and where they fall into the inverted triangle diagram. So I'm going to share that right now. Oh, okay.
So I've just sent a document. You can click on that, and it's got both of those diagrams, the inverted pyramid with the 6 items in it, and the 2 circles system change diagram, or the, yeah.
Okay, in that case, I'm going to send a list of events, and then we're gonna randomly split you guys up into, oh, the points don't stay. Okay, whatever. I sent you your list of events, and then we're gonna split you up into 2 groups and have you discuss which should go where on both charts. So Eric, if we could have some breakout rooms, or
I've noticed that when you go into breakout rooms, I'm pretty sure you lose the chat. Or maybe you just lose the access to send message stuff in. But maybe it would be a good idea to copy and paste this. If everyone could copy and paste this. I'm not sure if it's actually going to disappear or not. Maybe disregard that.
I think it should stay, but I will add them just to the document just in case, I think. Request edit access.
You should be able to do that now. So yeah, once you're in the breakout rooms, we'd really love it if you just take a little bit to talk about where these timeline events fit in these diagrams, about the importance of collectives and how they can come together, and really just what this story sort of means and what it can teach us on a broader scale, in the sense of systems change as a whole concept. So we'll just get these breakout rooms all ready. Is everybody ready? Awesome.
Thanks for covering for me, Eric.
Oh, no, sorry. I was just so, useless in general with this. I should probably go. There's one breakout room that only has 2 people and not one of us. So do you want to go there or should I?
I can go, or can we both go? Is that a thing that can happen?
Why don't I? I can pop you in, and then I think I can join. I don't really know how to use the breakout rooms.
Yeah. No, thank you.
I was wondering, is this on? Yeah, okay. That the individual change would be in the boxes that are just talking about Gabriel at the beginning.
The boxes like this one.
Yeah.
our group talked about how he was inspired as kind of an example of the collective influencing the individual. So maybe you could put on the arrow that goes from like collective to individual. Yeah.
Thank you. Lucas, what did your group talk about?
Well, we were looking at sort of the pyramid, right? And we were trying to determine like what was the actual like transformative thing that happened. You know, what was the most transformative bullet that we could find? And we found that, you know, the influencing of the neighbors was sort of the most like sort of expansive thing that came out of sort of this protest.
Yeah, that's very true. Is there anyone else that would like to share what their groups talked about?
My group was just going through like, we kind of like we're starting at the first point and trying to go through all of them as much as possible. We found a lot of power dynamics at play. So like when the letter of the police chief came in and like defined the chalk art as graffiti, we put that as a power dynamic.
For sure, yeah. That's definitely true. And I would really love to hear from everyone in this discussion. So does anyone have any thoughts just on where items might go on here? We don't have to fill them all in. Nicola?
I think that for the one that says the lawyer working with the family says the city's erasure of the chalk art is infringing, I think that's how you say it, on their free speech. That would be system change, because technically that city is depriving the family of a human right, which is free speech. So it should be in system change. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Did anyone have any more thoughts on how things could be arranged here? We don't have to totally finish it, but just getting down a couple of ideas of how we think as our own collective can be really helpful in continuing to let this idea percolate in our minds over the weekend.
I would just like to add, there were some points that were kind of counteracting the change that was happening. For instance, like the Rob case responded with a more detailed warning saying that drawings, like, yeah, that one, I feel like there's the diagram, I think it's pretty accurate, but there should also be like a place for kind of barriers and challenges to the change, because it's not like it's not an easy, simple process of just one change leads to the other. There are obviously a lot of barriers and challenges that have to be overcome in order to achieve these different kinds of change.
For sure, yeah. So maybe our thinking has led us to show that this diagram is maybe a bit simplified, and that in the real world, in our own lives and in the change we try and influence, that there's definitely going to be barriers we see when we try and influence collectives and when our collectives try and influence systems. Does anyone have any final thoughts to share on our discussion today? No? Awesome. Well, thank you all for participating. I hope we got a little bit of a more in-depth explanation or inquiry into systems change. I think next week we'll be moving on to intersectionality for our leadership session. But if you want to talk about systems change, there will be a systems change discussion set up on the Conversations Circle Canvas course after this course. So you can always talk about it there if you'd like. But with that, I think we'll move on to Lucas and what he's going to be sharing with us today.
Appreciate it. All right. So I just wanted to get a feel for where you guys are on your story. Have you guys thought about your like individual projects a little more yet?
I've had a bit of trouble like sending in my assignments because they're being sent through a PDF. So like that's why I haven't really finished the first assignment.
Yeah, don't worry about like trying to finish it. It's much more important that like you just think about what's actually like in it. I don't really care about, you know, how good or how fleshed out the ideas in these assignments are. As long as you're thinking about it, that's a lot more important, right?
Mhm.
So for today, I just wanted to use the first couple of minutes to like just ask you guys a couple questions about each of your pieces, right? If that's okay, and just try to like help you guys sort of along the way of getting to actually putting words on paper, right? So I'm just gonna pick you guys at random, and then I'm just gonna start, you know, chatting with you about it, and then I really encourage everybody else to like, if you guys have any questions about like the stories, just ask them. Like, don't like raise your hand. Just start like asking questions. All right. So, Marina, can you introduce sort of your story? You had like a really fleshed out topic, so I want to start with that.
I was hoping that I would write a profile on a friend of mine, and uh, I was really inspired by the Frank Sinatra article or profile that you had put in the assignment. Um, yeah, I think it's more the um, questions that I have about how it's going to actually work and how much time I would have to interview my friend about her experience as a Black woman in Canada and growing up in Jamaica and living in all parts of Canada as well. So she has a lot of experiences and stories that she would share with me in high school. So
Mhm.
I'm just wondering how, does that whole thing need to be done by next Friday? Is that what's
You can just go at your own pace. It
Yeah.
doesn't really matter like when you do it.
Right.
The module for like interviewing skills, that's gonna come later today once this is over today.
Okay,
And
perfect.
so yeah, you can like, you know, brush up on your interviewing skills,
Yeah, I'll
stuff
get
like
on
that
that.
if,
Okay.
yeah, if you want to. But yeah, like, you know, you could even make it, you know, a personal essay about like how you met her,
Mm-hmm.
sort of you interpreting like her experience from your own lens. You could do that too if you think that makes
It's a
it
great
easier.
idea,
Yeah,
actually.
if you don't want
Yeah.
to, you know,
Right.
you can tell her story however you want. But do you have any idea of like what you want like the opening sort of scene to be? What how do you want to open your story?
Well, I remember so vividly meeting her for the first time. And it was like I never had this experience with another teen before. We were in our school gym, and my friend had said, "Oh, this is Tricia, and she's just like moved here." And every single person that she met that day, she was like, "Hi, it's so nice to meet you," and she like shook everyone's hand. My name's Tricia, and I was like, "Wow, this person is so amazing." And we just talked about like thrift stores and all this stuff, and she's like, "Oh, you change your clothes? I change my clothes. You like thrift?" I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And it was like this instant like connection. I thought I mean we definitely are still friends and we still connect and stuff. So I just remember that moment, like coming back home that day and telling my parents, like, I met this like wonderful person, and it was just such a nice feeling. And I even remember like what she was wearing. I just see that whole scene in my mind very clearly.
Yeah, that's an awesome place to start. And that's why, you know, in module one, I encourage you guys to think about sort of like some scenes that could lead the story. So that's like a really great way to like it'll start the story kind of chronologically. Um, yeah, I can already imagine like the intro being like, you know, the day I met her, she was wearing this, and then
Yeah.
just recount that experience. And I think that would be a really great personal essay.
Okay,
Personally,
thank
it's
you.
yeah.
That makes,
Uh,
I just feel like so inspired already, and like remembering about that memory makes me so happy. So yeah, feels really good. So thank you. Yeah.
cool. All right. Sophia, can you tell me a little bit about your story?
I mean, I'm kind of rethinking my idea too, so I don't
Mm-hmm.
really know if it's okay. So I wanted to do something somewhere along environmental climate issues, and so I was thinking about writing kind of a collection of profiles just to get a bunch of different perspectives. But I guess I don't really know like where I would get all those interviews. Um, so originally I kind of wanted to interview like a variety of people who kind of cared about the issue, but in different like who would be affected in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I don't know who to interview, so that's the problem.
That'd be really interesting if you did like one sort of narrower part about climate change and then like interviewed everybody it's affecting, right? Like this is just an example, but you know, if you talk about sort of the rising sea levels of like a neighborhood, you could talk to like a resident of that neighborhood. You can talk to somebody maybe that does some fishing in that coastal area, and then their business is going to be affected. Um, an ecologist that really cares about sort of the natural biomes that are there. So you can like try to take an angle from all sorts of all the parts of a particular issue. But with a topic like climate change, it's so big that it'll be really difficult to start unless I think you narrow your focus to a more specific part of climate change. So I would encourage you to think about that.
Okay,
Yeah.
I like that idea.
Nicola, do you have anything? What's your story about?
What story?
Like your journalism project.
I can't access it
You
through
still can't
Canvas.
access it?
It won't let me go to other modules.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
All right.
Yeah, like I can't hand in my first assignment because it's on a PDF. So it's not letting me access the other modules. So I don't know.
Okay. Is there any social issue that you care about?
Sexism at school, especially
That's a really good topic.
because I've dealt with it in, I think it's PE class mostly.
Yeah.
So yeah, like we need to normalize like women in sports. But I've just been like, it's just that Canvas hasn't been working for me.
Yeah.
And
Well,
yeah.
yeah. If Canvas isn't working, just like ignore Canvas. It's a lot more important that we're at least just like thinking and spitballing ideas.
Where's the, like, how can I access the instructions for the project? Because I don't know what I'm doing.
Well, there are no actual instructions yet.
So
We're
the
still at like the brainstorming stage. So
project
as
is
long
just to write a story?
Hmm?
Is it just to write a story?
well, we're gonna work on a story over time, right? We're just
Yeah.
thinking of ideas for our story right now.
But then, like, who do I send it to? Where do I email it to? Like, how do I even start?
We just start by talking about it. So like sexism in PE class, right?
Yeah.
Like what age range of students do you think you want to focus on?
I'd say like any grade really. Like, well, I'm going into grade 10, so
Yeah.
maybe I'll focus on people who are a bit older.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, you could maybe like think of a person to talk to or something like that who's experienced it, tell their story, or if you're comfortable with it, you could tell your own story. There's all sorts of like interesting stories to tell in that. So
Yeah.
I think you'll be on the right track.
I just the only problem is that I can't access other parts of Canvas, which is the only frustrating part.
Yeah. I'll try to work with Eric and we'll try to sort that out for you.
For sure.
Okay.
How about you, Maya? What's your story about?
Well, the broad kind of topic I want to focus on is racial injustice, especially in the United States. At this point, I don't exactly have, because it's such a broad kind of issue and it has so many like smaller issues within that issue. And so I'm not sure if I should be focusing on like one specific issue. For instance, there's economic injustice, there's police brutality, there's environmental racism in the United States. I mean, you know, not only in the United States, but I'm not really sure exactly what I want to write about. All I really know is that it should be something around racial injustice in the United States.
Okay. Do you want to talk about all races, or do you want to focus on like racism towards a specific group of people?
I guess I think I would probably write more about racism against African Americans and the Black community and Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, that's okay. So your options here are either to go like specific, you know, and try to narrow down like, okay, do I want to talk about police brutality specifically, you know, environmental injustice specifically or something like that? Or do I want to give sort of like a really broad overview? And that could really work too. If you wanted to do like a timeline of events highlighting every aspect, that might be like doing an entire feature about it might be like 10,000 words and might take you like an entire year to do. But if you just did like a timeline with less sort of, without as deep a specific investigation into each thing, that might really tell your story, but also reduce the amount of work that you have to do, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that might be an idea. But yeah, like the more specific you go, the easier it's going to be to write. And this is true for all your pieces, right? It'll become really difficult to try to get every idea about a social issue into one article. Even like the most high-end journalists working for the New York Times, they have like specific projects and each journalist tackles one aspect, right? Like recently they did this whole series on systemic racism, and you know, one person's tackling police brutality, one other person is tackling, you know, wealth inequality, stuff like that. So yeah, it's a very ambitious project to try to take everything on. So maybe try to like narrow it down. Another thing that I like to do when it's hard for me to start on a piece is to find a character, right? Even if they don't end up becoming like the main character in my piece, trying to center it around an individual's actual like anecdotal experience might be a way to like sort of figure out which elements of your issue you actually want to tackle. Nayu, how about you?
I have a few ideas,
Okay.
but the one that I'm leaning most towards is racism against Asians, especially with the whole COVID thing happening and people blaming Chinese people. But
Yeah,
I'm not too sure yet.
That's a really good one. And if you take a specific like post-COVID approach to it, what you could do is, you know, start off the story with like, you know, in May, person A was sitting in a bus. You know, she had her headphones in, and she was going from this stop to that stop. She didn't think anything of the ride, and then this happened to her, and then you start your story that way, with like an individual person's experience, and then your follow-up paragraphs could be something like, she her story isn't the only one. Post COVID, like prejudiced attacks against Asians has gone up this percent, and you can sort of start flowing that way. But you have a really specific focus, so yeah, just really lean into that.
Okay.
What about you, Alice? Do you have a social issue that you want to tackle?
Like I have some problems signing up for Canvas for like many days, and I just signed up this morning, so I don't really know, like I'm not really prepared for like the topic.
Yeah, that's cool.
So,
Just think about it. If there is a social issue that you feel passionate about, that's the one you should go after, right? Like writing about something you're not passionate about is going to be a lot more effort than something that you do care about. I learned that the hard way. And Kiana, do you have a social issue that?
I think so. So I'm kind of on the same boat with Canvas. I had some issues with it, and I finally got in today. Okay. So I kind of, just from this, I kind of know what's going on. But
okay.
Do you think it would be okay if I were to like talk about, I guess, my experience in like trying to help the right to play sports? Is that socially? That I think, yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, totally. Like in what way? Like for, as a woman or something like that? Like, is that the angle?
I think, well, I guess it was 2 years ago now. I worked with the Vancouver Street Soccer League, and they basically help provide a league for mostly youth who are like either they have a youth league and an adult league, and it's for people who struggle with like homelessness, addiction. It just provides like a good, I guess, safe place for everyone to like play sports, which has been found to be like really beneficial as like a good, I don't know, way to meet people, and along with like it's a stress reliever too.
Yeah, that's perfect, right? Like that's a very narrow, specific idea. I think if you told the story of that entire organization, that'd be really good.
Okay.
I'll send you, I did a pretty similar piece for a magazine. It's about like the homelessness crisis in Vancouver, but I've done a similar piece where I did pretty much told the story of how this helpful organization came to be. And yeah, I think it'll like your story will follow some really similar beats to the thing that I wrote.
Okay.
But yeah, that's a really good story. And definitely, like if you have a statistic about like, this study shows that playing sports is really helpful for the disadvantaged, then, you're golden, right? The piece will sort of write itself. And yeah, because you actually participated in it, you can throw in your own experience, use the pronoun I in it, and, it'll help the story move along. That's really good.
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay, so with what little time we have left, I just wanted us, I guess we don't have time to break out into groups and start debating. Oh, Alex, welcome back.
Sorry, I had to deal with something. Hi.
Yeah, that's okay.
I was quietly listening along though. The idea that I have for my story is I might be down to write something about going back to school and like having to deal with online learning, like, for neurodivergent people and stuff, because I'm neurodivergent myself, and I think that it's something that people need to talk about a lot, especially because getting accommodations can be very difficult, especially if you have something like autism, which is less diagnosed in both women and people of color. So Yeah. And like, you know, online learning is hard enough for neurotypical individuals. And I find that it's especially difficult for people like me. Like I once took 10 hours to do a math exam because that was online. I had to do 6 hours the first day and then 3.5 the next day. It was horrible. And yeah, no, I know like other people who are struggling and like, you know, scrambling to get diagnoses and stuff because otherwise people won't listen to them when they say that they have disabilities. So yeah.
Right. So did you want to do like recount sort of your personal experience or tell the experiences of others?
I'd probably mostly be focusing on my own experiences, just how I've been struggling a lot, but I might also like, you know, ask some of my other neurodivergent friends for like quotes and stuff because, you know, I have a lot of neurodivergent friends.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's awesome. A piece about your like personal struggle of transitioning to online learning as someone that's neurodivergent is a great idea for a piece. All right. Okay. So looks like we have about 5 minutes. How many of you guys watched Module 2? Okay, cool. So the issue that I wanted to sort of bring up was, you know, in everybody's Module 2 assignment that I had a chance to look at, we all were concerned about 2 things in particular, 2 terms in particular. LGBTQ plus, that one, which was sort of unanimous. We want to use, we want to be as inclusive as possible. We want to use more than just LGBT and LGBTQ. We want to add the plus. We'll sort of decide as a group how long we want to make that. But the thing I really want to focus on was sort of the difference between native and indigenous. So just from a show of hands, who would prefer to use the term native? And who would prefer to use the term indigenous? What's the iffiness for now?
I don't know. I've heard some people that I know that are like Indigenous First Nations, like say they prefer other terms, but like.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point. I was thinking about it really hard and trying to figure out like, okay, what's the best word to use? And the best thing to use, I think, might be to try to figure out like exactly what tribe or nation they belong to and use that, right? I think in all cases, like blanket words like indigenous don't really help, you know, because somebody out east who's a Mohawk will consider themselves completely separate than somebody in the West, like who, you know, it belongs to the Squamish people or something like that, right? So with all these words, we have to figure out sort of rules to when to use them, you know? So if we're talking about the greater struggle of Indigenous people throughout Canada, then we would use the word Indigenous. If we're talking about individuals, I encourage you guys, try your best to figure out exactly what tribe and what title, because, you know, they'll always all have different titles. So for your piece in particular, Nayu, if you're talking about like Asians, there might be a time where you have to distinguish between, you know, like specify Chinese or Taiwanese or Japanese or whatever. And in some cases you'll have to refer to Asians, right? Because statistics, if you're like researching statistics, a lot of sort of demographic data will show up as, you know, this percent is Asian. And you're going to have to try to balance the fact that some statistics are very specific in what race they point to and some are very general. With the word Asian, what do we think the word Asian means?
someone from Asia.
But like, so what about South Asia? You know, in the way we use Asian as a group, are we going to specify South Asian, or are South Asian people going to belong to the greater term of Asia? Like, we have to sort of make these decisions. What do we think of that?
I think like most people think about East Asia, but
Mm-hmm.
the term should like just by the term should include all of Asia, but a lot of people don't think about it that way.
Right.
Like, I wouldn't consider people who are Georgian to be Asian.
Yeah, but technically they are.
Yeah.
So that's why we can't like just use the word Asian in our work and just write it down, because we have to be consistent. Like, one piece can't use the word Asian and refer to only East Asians when you read and you flip the magazine and the next piece says Asian and they're talking about someone from the Middle East, right? So I think for our purposes, the best way to sort of avoid this conflict is just, as a general rule, really be as specific as possible. You know, if they're Chinese Canadian, try to write like Chinese Canadian. When you're interviewing someone, it might be kind of difficult. These are sort of personal questions that are always sort of hard to ask in interviews, I find. Do you consider yourself a Chinese Canadian? What pronouns do you use? But if you guys can sort of ask the tough questions in your interviews, it'll go a long way to helping you write your piece without any sort of conflicts in your language. So it is 2:00. Thank you guys for joining me for this session and trying to think a little deeper about your pieces. Hopefully, you guys have a little bit more direction on where to take your piece.
I do. I'm asking my friends like right now if they want to give me their experiences.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, Alex, for sure. I'm gonna try to have the module for interviewing up as soon as this is over, right? So if you have time for it, take a look at it and try to embed some interviewing skills into your brain, but like right before you do those interviews. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions about sort of where we're at?
Can I just say something quickly about the usage of Indigenous versus Native and Aboriginal?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I thought that it was going to be like a debate.
Yeah.
So my anxiety was like all the way up here. So this morning I was like researching about the terms and I was like, I gotta know this and all that stuff. So if anyone's interested in all of the research that I found this morning from like really great websites and like CBC articles about, what people are more comfortable with and just, in general, then I can definitely send them that.
Yeah, I'll apologize to you. I'm sorry I made you go through that.
It's okay. I mean, I was just like, okay, all right.
Yeah. But that's a really great conversation that we should have on our own time, like in the Canvas discussion page. And if you guys are interested, we can have a formal debate about it sometime next week. That'd be great. At this point, if we did it, I think Marina would crush all you guys. So that wouldn't be a very fair fight. But yeah. Oh, actually, and one last note about what we're doing on Monday. To polish up your interviewing skills, I have 4 or 5 working journalists that you guys are going to cold call. So hope you guys show up for that session. It's going to be, if it puts you out of your comfort zone, that's great. And, if you nail it and it goes perfectly, that's great as well. But just so you guys know, that's what we're going to be doing. So, be ready to just call someone up and probably be really awkward.
Kiana, I just want to say I've done quite a bit of research into like sport and access to sport and right to play and things like that. So I'm happy to pass some along to you if you would like.
Yeah, that'd be perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Lucas, we've talked about next week, Monday, and it's going to be so much fun for everyone. But thank you.
It's going to be fun for me. I know that.
It's going to be so much fun for, well, definitely you, but everyone else as well. Thank you, Lucas. If anyone wants, how would you guys like to take like a quick 2-minute stretch break, get some water if you'd like? Would people enjoy that?
Sounds good to me.
Awesome. We'll see you back here at 2:06. And I hope everyone enjoyed their short little break. And then Rachel, I think you have some very interesting stuff to talk about today.
Oh, yeah. Just to touch base with everyone, who here has done my module 2? So I know Maya has, Alex, Marina, yes.
That's the one with the collage, right?
Yes, it's the one with the collage. Are you guys comfortable with me sharing your guys' work? Okay, awesome. I just kind of wanted to pick your brains about like how the exercise was for you, what you guys have learned so far. And yeah, and if you guys can just kind of describe your collages that you created. Let me just pull them up real quick. Okay, so like for the premise of this exercise, my whole module was based on implicit bias. And the module was, the practice part was centered around people creating collages based on a list of words associated with the term white. So I had people make a list about around 20 words, and then they would, take 5 individual words and create a collage based on imagery around those 5 words. So I do have, I'm gonna pull up Maya's real quick. Okay, so this is what Maya had put together. Do you mind walking us through it a little bit, or like just sharing your experience?
Yeah, sure. When I wrote the list of 20 words or so, they kind of boiled down to 2 categories. And the first was, you can kind of see here, like pure or empty. Like white is kind of represents like light and like generally good things, and also I guess kind of nothingness and emptiness. But that was kind of one train of thought that I had when I was thinking about white, the color word white. And but then on the other hand, there was also kind of a very dark aspect that surfaced in my mind, which are the 3, and also others too, but the words you see in the collage are like colonialism or race, which obviously isn't necessarily like it's not a bad thing. That's not really what I meant, but obviously there are a lot of issues and problems with, on dividing on racial lines and stuff, and also white supremacy. And so I just thought that it was interesting that kind of both these perspectives really came to mind when I thought of this word. Yeah, because traditionally I feel like white was associated with good things. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm personally not Christian, so I wouldn't know this for sure, but sort of white is associated with like being pure and maybe heaven and things like that, while like hell, that concept is thought of kind of if you were to like visualize it, you would think of really like dark things, just visually dark things. And so I think that narrative is very ingrained in my mind, but then there's also the more recent ones where white can be associated with like a lot of dark things historically, like obviously racism and white supremacy and things like that. So yeah, it was just kind of I don't know, I kind of wanted to portray that contrast.
No, it's really cool. I also noticed throughout the submissions that I got that like a lot of people included hands for some reason. So what specifically was your what specifically was your like inspiration for including the hand imagery?
Well, I mean, I thought of race, and then with race, I thought of skin color. And then with skin color, I kind of thought of hands. I don't know, that was kind of my thought process, but yeah.
No, it's interesting because like a lot of different people use that certain motif as well. No, but thank you so much for sharing. It's like really, really dope. I'm just gonna go on to Marina's now. And Marina, do you mind walking me through your collage in particular?
Yeah, of course. So I think with Maya was also describing like her two categories, I definitely noticed that as well. That I think there were some things that were just like clean and bright, and I also thought of wedding as well, like with a wedding dress and what that entails too. But then as the list went on, they got a lot, the words got a lot darker, and I think more power-based for sure, and sort of, what would the word be? Like a lot of control and takeover is another word that I wrote. I think, yeah, there was just, is it supposed to be up on the screen?
Are you not seeing it?
No. So I'm like trying to remember what I did.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, I think your screen, something's up, because I think when you went to close the other one, then you just highlighted it by mistake.
Oh, my bad. Okay.
It's okay.
It's like, what did I do again?
Okay. Where did I put it? Okay. Here. Okay. So this is what Marina was talking about.
Right. Okay. So and I guess I didn't really think about the hands, but there's a few of them in there for sure. So I think I tried to find hands that almost were sort of like reaching or crawling or something that was kind of like taking, not something that's very peaceful with like the hand gestures. Yeah, with the person floating, the original picture had them like hovering over a rock that they were like levitating, and it kind of my original thought was to find someone like, you know, when someone like conquers something or something, they have like a pose and it's like their knees on the rock or something and they're like holding a big flag. I was looking for something like that, felt like very dominating and not necessarily in a positive way. But this person like levitating I found really interesting, and that one of the other things I said was like sparkly and bright. So with the diamond, I kind of imagined that was replacing their head, and the dog, who's like very scary looking in my opinion, was just something that I saw from some of the other words that I had felt with the more ominous things.
Yeah. No, thanks a lot for sharing that with us. You also have like a throne here of some sort. You also have somebody drinking in the corner.
Oh yeah. So another thing, let's see what I think my thought process for that was, one of the things I wrote was understood and valued. And to me, I kind of imagined that these people were sitting around, they were communicating ideas and talking with each other, and everyone was listening to them, and they were just enjoying being heard and being valued, essentially. So I wanted to add that in there. And I think the throne was more something just to, I mean, obviously it can mean a certain status, and it just felt like it was right to put that there, who is sort of holding power and who's sitting on, a throne or something like that. So yeah.
And like through this exercise, did you find that you were like challenging any innate like thought processes that you had while yeah?
I think a part of it I noticed was that when I was writing at the beginning, and it was like clean, bright, shiny, pure, and I was almost feeling bad that I was choosing those words, and I thought that I need to, or not that I need to force myself, but it was almost like, why are these words so positive at the beginning? And as I think I gave it more thought, just hearing the word white repeated in my mind made it like darker, but I don't think I answered the question correctly.
Oh, no. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, when I was doing this exercise as well, when I was testing it out, I had like a very similar process where since like the time frame was very limited and I had to get a lot of words down, like I had to do things like very, very fast. So it was like white, like clean. I started thinking about Mr. Clean, started writing down like bald earring, and then I was like, oh, I'm off tangent. And then I was like, yeah, but it's cool to see like the different things and the different ideas that people came up with. So thank you for sharing, Marina.
Thank you.
I'm just gonna go straight to Alex's next. Okay.
Yeah,
so
hi.
This did the thing again. Okay, so I have to reshare my screen. Bear with me.
Okay. Yeah, sorry I keep turning my camera off. I'm just not really feeling my best right now.
No worries.
Anyways, I think I misunderstood the thing. I think I was supposed to just focus. I decided to focus on just like one or two of the words that came up, hence the whole theme with teeth and bones, instead of like, something a bit more varied.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah,
just tell us what
so
what was your inspiration?
I guess I started mostly with like, abstract and aesthetics things, so like teeth, bones, snow, ice, clouds, etc. And of course, inevitably it did kind of dip into the darker stuff, like, like colonialism, white supremacy and stuff. And I remember just looking at this and thinking like, oh, well, they want me to pick only like, one or two things, and I don't know why I thought that. I must have like misread something, but I ended up choosing teeth and bones, and I decided to just do something based off teeth and bones. So I cut out a bunch of teeth, and I put some rib cages on the bottom as kind of like a border, and then I superimposed it all over a giant X-ray of teeth.
No, it's cool. Is this a quote that you wrote in the middle, or
I just made that up?
Oh, okay.
I just wrote that for fun because I know a lot of people who think teeth are bones, and they aren't.
Well, I learned something new today.
There's something else. I forget what it is. I think someone once said they're more comparable to nails, which is just terrifying to think about. Yeah, but no, when you look up our teeth bones, they're mostly hard inorganic minerals like calcium. They also contain nerves, blood vessels, and specialized cells, but they are not bones. They do not regenerate and can't grow back if broken. So, yeah.
Oh, that's dope.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting, like how, because there was no like correct way to do this, like in particular. So I just wanted to see like where everybody's mind went. I believe David drew a cliff or something, and like somebody like trying to like go up a cliff. That was pretty interesting as well. But yeah, I just wanted to share the submissions that we had so far.
Okay.
Let me just stop sharing my screen real quick. I have, how much more time do I have, Eric?
Just about 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Awesome. Okay, so I have a little online quiz that I would like everyone to partake in. The instructors as well, if you have the time. Let me grab the link real quick. This is going to be an implicit bias exercise. It shouldn't be too long. I think it should actually be around 10 minutes. But if you don't finish in 10 minutes, it's totally fine. Let me just grab the link real quick. Sorry, I have like 50 tabs opened. I did not plan this well.
It's okay.
Okay, so I have the quote and I'm just gonna paste it in the chat. Oh, oops.
You just sent that.
Yep, my bad. Okay, yeah.
Okay,
so here's the link. If you guys want, you don't have to have your cameras on like during it.
Okay. So
but yeah,
which one should we take? Should we take all of them or?
You can choose one. Yeah, you can choose one.
Is anyone else getting the same your study has timed out error?
Yeah, I just got that as well.
Oh, really? Oh, I'm getting the exercise. Maybe refresh your page?
I tried that already.
Huh. Are you using Safari, Chrome, Explorer?
I'm using Chrome.
Huh. Interesting.
You're saying that it could be the result of your IP address changing?
Do you guys have a VPN?
No.
Huh.
We have to register?
No.
I'm gonna try to register.
The race bias one is working for me. That
what I did was I just
difference?
Googled it. If you Google it and then you go to implicit.harvard.edu, maybe it'll work. We'll see. Yep, it works. All I had to do was Google it.
Okay, yeah. This one in particular is a little bit different, but they're pretty much the exact same thing. It's just with the Harvard one, you actually have to like fill out information, which is just a little bit cumbersome, but is anyone else still experiencing any issues? Oh.
It still hasn't, it still keeps saying that there's something wrong with like my like IP address or something. Trying a different link right now.
Let me just try a different link.
I'm getting it even if I Google it.
I can't get the one that you sent to work. Should I still do the Harvard one?
Yeah, we can try the Harvard one.
Okay.
I just sent out a quick link to a Harvard one that seems to be working.
Thank you. Has anyone gotten any results yet? Okay.
I have.
Okay, Lucas.
Yes. I just finished it.
Awesome. Alex, do you mind sharing what your results were?
Sure. It says that I have no automatic preference between African Americans and European Americans.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. It's probably because I was pretty slow.
No worries. Yeah, it does measure your timing speeds in particular.
Mm-hmm.
So I took the Harvard one the other day, and it told me that I have a bias against old people. So that was something I had to grapple with as I went to sleep at night. Lucas, what about you?
I did the gay and the straight one.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, I have a slight implicit preference for straight people compared to gay people.
Mm-hmm. And Trinity?
Muted, sorry. I did the race one, and I have a, sorry, I opened another tab. I have a moderate implicit preference for white people compared to black people.
Mm-hmm. Does anyone else have, did anyone else finish theirs as of yet?
Yeah, I finished mine. I also had like a slight bias toward white people.
Mm-hmm.
But I also don't know if that's because I got better at the game.
Yeah, it kind of just like measures your speed in particular. Like the one I took the other day, the Harvard one, like I felt like I was doing it as quickly as I possibly could, but the system kind of picked up on the slight lag that it took for me to kind of categorize old people in particular. And then with that information, like they came to the conclusion that like it just took me longer to, what's the word? It took me longer to kind of like categorize and place people who are elderly with something like slightly positive. So yeah. But how's everybody else doing? Feel free to tune back in. You don't really need to finish this exercise. It was just more of like, you know, something fun and interesting to get into. Yeah. Kieran, are you still there?
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to finish. I was trying to go through the last couple of questions.
Mm-hmm. Alice, did you end up finishing yours?
Yeah.
Okay, and what results did you get?
Like I actually like it says it needs to be like on a computer.
Oh, okay. Are you on your phone?
I'm on my
okay.
iPad. So it says it needs like the E and I button. So I didn't really I searched it up on the computer, but it says it doesn't work. It's like timeout or something.
Okay.
So I was like,
oh, no worries. You can like do it in your own time, definitely. But yeah, just from this, I just want everybody to kind of look into whatever biases that you guys may have, whether it be to like people of certain racial backgrounds, orientations, age groups, disabilities, mental levels, and stuff like that. So yeah, that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
I have no preference.
Nice.
Sorry, I guess I have to tell. So no preference between African Americans and European Americans. I'm impressed that you all finished so fast.
Yeah, we got some quick fingers, this group has. But yeah, Eric, I pass it back to you. Thank you everyone for participating.
Yeah.
And yeah, also like for those of you like who haven't done the exercise yet, like it's all self-paced, so you can do it at any time.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Thank you. This implicit bias test is really interesting. I'll make sure to put that on the Conversation Circle Canvas module as well. So if you didn't get a chance to finish it, the link will be there, so you can do it whenever you'd like. And they've got a whole range of them to see where you might have an implicit bias. But moving on from there, Kieran, I think you have a few things to talk about today as well.
Yeah. Definitely. I just so I wasn't really able to see if anyone was able to finish the produce portion of the second module, just because it was on the Wabi Sabi map and I couldn't necessarily find them all, but just, did anyone finish that would like to share their poem?
Oh, sharing poems? I can try to do that. I think I wrote something down on my phone a while before this. Yeah, let me just try and get that open. If anyone else has anything to share, they can do that while I like scramble to find it because it's somewhere in my notes app. Yeah, no, I found it. If anyone else wants to go first? Nope, just me? Okay. It's very, very short, but here goes nothing. In isolation times, world is a confusing concept. Who's to say there are places beyond the neighborhood and neighborhood park? I press petals and leaves that have fallen from trees and find the favorite perch atop a hill. I stay distant, though, for the forest cannot veil sickness. And until this plague lifts, this park is all I know.
That was awesome.
Thank you.
What, so was that directed to the park? A park around
Yeah. Yeah, I live right by a park.
Awesome. Through this, did you feel like you kind of thought more about how you like interacted with a certain space?
Yeah, like I kind of asked myself, like, what is it that I'm doing when I'm there, you know? And like, am I like, you know, being a good presence there? And like, why am I here? How am I being here? You know, like, again, just what am I doing?
Yeah, no, I think so often we kind of almost, or maybe this is speaking for myself, but almost like float through place and or space and don't really interact and consider the things around us and how we impact them and how we are associated with it. So I think it's kind of a cool exercise. I always think like when I really consider it, I'm like, how am I interacting, or how does this place like mean to me, and what do other people, share notions? Am I just this anomaly in how I feel about this place? Mm-hmm. It's kind of a cool concept to really focus more into the place that you're in.
Yeah.
And what it means. Okay, so I kind of thought like last week, or not last week, feels like a week ago actually, but the last class or last live session, it seemed kind of some people hadn't been able to access some of the stuff. So I just figured I'd do maybe like a little recap on the module. So I'm just going to share my screen. And here we go. So, okay, so I just kind of wanted to talk about how public spaces changed during the pandemic, and then look at some creative responses intended to kind of benefit public health. This module was very much centered around how systemic inequalities are connected to the built environment, and then talk a little bit about how art can kind of be used in public space to challenge like inequalities and promote social justice. So yeah, we just kind of keep going on this one. Okay, so the question we kind of talked about was how COVID-19 pandemic has impacted public space and what the implications are for public health. So just, yeah, talked about kind of modern inequalities being tied to physical space, and how the virus has somewhat compounded these issues. So yeah, during the pandemic, I mean, I'm sure we've all seen it, but these images kind of illustrate how space has changed during this time. Like on the left and on the right, you can see these kind of normally bustling squares. Like the left is Paris, the right is New York. These are both cities that they're constantly full of people and like a hive of activity. So, you know, public space is normally it's pretty integral to our cities and our lives. Like it's where we like interact with other people, create meaning, create kind of community, and create place, create values. So obviously during this pandemic, it's been pretty destructive to not have this access. We've seen things like, you know, like signs saying stay 6 feet apart, barriers between things, everything kind of to separate people. I feel like so often in the past, space has been about bringing people together, and now there's this reversal where everything's about kind of separation, and kind of the risk of people grouping together. So, you know, if you look at this, you can see that this, I mean, it's obviously just a picture, but this is something that would normally be like teeming with kind of activity. But, you know, just like a lot of squares, a lot of markets, everything like that, fear has really cleared out these normally super busy spaces during the pandemic. I think so much what we focus on right now is the negative, but any of you, and I just want you to kind of think about this for like 30 seconds, but are there any spaces that are normally like filled with people that you guys would really like to visit, like while empty? So I'm thinking like, when I thought about this, maybe it's because I'm super old and things may have changed, I'm not sure, but I thought of like a busy arcade when I was young, or like going to visit an arcade. You can play all the games, or like now more so like think about like a gallery where you don't have to push through crowds and go through everything, to go through people to get to the pieces you want to see. So yeah, just take kind of 30 seconds and just think about you have any dream places you'd like to kind of go and visit when they're completely empty and you could have like the space to yourselves.
For me, probably Playland. All the rides to myself, that'd be a dream come true.
Yeah, seriously.
Oh God, yeah.
I know it's kind of wild when we think back to, I mean, even like 6 months ago, to the hustle and bustle of life and going to full restaurants and all that, you know. It's really reoriented everything in space. Does anyone else have any? Maybe longer too?
I would like to go to the beach without there being a buttload of people. That would be nice.
I know, it's funny now that it's kind of opened up a little bit, at least in Vancouver. Some of these places are even busier than they used to be.
Yeah.
A private concert would be pretty cool.
Who would you want to see?
Oh, I have a big list, but I don't know. I always love seeing Post Malone live, so I'd probably see him.
The first time I saw him live, it was a pretty empty space, so I've had that.
Nice.
I've had that experience. So it was good.
When I saw him live, he was so drunk he couldn't even finish his set.
Yeah, he does
Got
drink a
ripped
lot
off,
when he
man.
performs, but yeah, he always breaks his I guess the guitar on the, I don't know if it's because he's drunk and that became a thing, or if he just likes breaking guitars like towards the end of his set, but notice that as like a trend. I don't know.
It's an expensive trend.
Yeah.
Anyways, so yeah, this is not a super serious exercise, obviously, but I just kind of thought it's kind of a good one to think about right now. So this was kind of something that was a big focus in the module, that's the design of public space, deepening inequality. So, you know, we've been living in North America with the virus for about 6 months now. And some trends, you know, not necessarily surprising trends, but worrying trends have kind of emerged. So, you know, while the virus does affect everyone, it's the rate at which it's transmitted and the rate at which people are dying is very like substantially higher in lower income and kind of non-white neighborhoods and communities. So it's really closely tied to economic status. So, I mean, we talked about in this module how people's health is affected by the place in which they live, and how, I mean, historically, using an example in the States, there have been policies in place that have dictated kind of where certain groups could or could not live. So I just want to talk very briefly about redlining, probably not doing it justice at all and going over it just pretty quickly because we don't have a huge amount of time, but how that's kind of had lasting implications for communities of color right now, especially in coronavirus, and kind of shows how interconnected social inequalities really are. So this is, redlining is, for those that don't know, is for decades, like many banks in the US denied mortgages to people, mostly people of color, in urban areas, preventing them from buying homes in certain neighborhoods or getting loans to renovate houses. It was actually backed by the American government, and I think it was the late 60s where eventually it subsided. So anyways, banks and other mortgages, because of this, they rejected loans for creditworthy people based strictly on race or where they lived. So people have pointed to, like scholars who have pointed to housing discrimination as really one factor it's created this like huge gulf in wealth between like different races in the US. So this map on the right, I'm not sure if you can see my clicker, it was Chicago in 1940. So the red right here represents the neighborhoods where normal mortgages were not approved. And so it coincided with neighborhoods where kind of Black or people of color, different racial groups, or immigrant families, they were forced to get risky private contracts instead of kind of safe mortgages, which, has had long-lasting implications. And so if you look at the maps on the left, they are present day, and they show the racial makeup of neighborhoods and the median income for these neighborhoods. As you can see, kind of redlining has really persisted and has led to segregated neighborhoods where people make substantially less money. These neighborhoods are a lot poorer, often located near waste and toxic sites, and had kind of different psychosocial environmental stressors, which have had direct relations or direct effects on chronic health issues like asthma or cardiovascular disease, which has had big impact on where we're at today with the inequalities in discrepancies in the impact of COVID. So I'm just going to go through this really quick because I think if you guys have read it or watched the video, kind of go into it a little bit, but redlining has led to a lot of long-lasting economic ramifications. So it's the real estate has long-term been a good indicator of generational wealth. So wealth is passed down between generations. So redlining excludes certain groups, and this has led to kind of an economic fragility where people are unable to respond to crises. And in a lot of low-income neighborhoods, this is meant to people working kind of precarious and service-oriented jobs, where people often have to take kind of public transit to get to jobs where it's very public-facing, and exposure to the virus is a lot more high, and you don't have the luxury of socially distanced work. So this is also an example of kind of detrimental negative effects that have come from redlining. This is actually, it's called, I'm blanking on it right now. It's called Cancer Alley. It's a stretch in Mississippi where there's a huge amount of chemical plants right here. They sit right beside residential neighborhoods, and it's just been, it's been found that people who live in these neighborhoods, and often communities of color, have been much more affected by cardiovascular and respiratory diseases. And yeah, it's really caused the severity of COVID to increase substantially. So this is actually a toxic emitting pipe that's shooting out these clouds of toxic smoke in Chicago. And anyways, a recent study found that there's a very close statistical connection between how much pollution you're exposed to and the severity of COVID. And then this last slide is just talking about kind of urban green space, and it's been shown to be a really good indicator of community health. And in communities that were previously in kind of redlined areas, there is a lot less green space. And kind of, this shows the inequalities in access to public space and the quality of public space that these policies and decisions have really led to. So anyways, so I just kind of want to show the interconnections between these kind of social issues and inequalities, and obviously really blew through them pretty quickly. But I just want to look at two quick examples of placemaking in public space that are being used to address community issues. And while they don't necessarily directly address redlining, they do consider kind of local green space, local sustainability, and kind of racial bias and racism. So this is the tiny forest example. It shows, I'm just going to play a couple minutes of the video, and it shows how people can kind of increase green space and local ecology in their communities. I think it's kind of a cool little idea. Let me know, can you hear this? Just a thumbs up if you can.
There are absolutely no trees common between Holland and India. I wish if there would have been a few, but there are no trees which are common. It's going to be a super dense forest full of species of native trees of Holland. These forests, compared to a conventional plantation, grows 10 times faster. They are 30 times more dense and 100 times more biodiverse. I started making a forest in the backyard of my own house, and this is how it looks after 3 years. How old are these?
These are 4 years old.
Trees grow very slowly here. So this is where we are going to make our first forest in Holland. You can see, it's called clay. This is good soil, but because it's clay, we have to add more perforation material so that roots can penetrate into it. To make a forest, we start with soil. We mix some local biomass available around, which can help soil become more porous. We survey the native tree species of the place. Once we know our trees, we divide them in 4 different layers: shrub layer, subtree layer, tree layer, and canopy layer. We fix the ratios of each layer, and then we decide the percentage of each tree species in the mix.
Nou ja, ik vind het echt een cadeautje voor de wijk. En het mooie van dit bos wat nu geplant is dat je ziet dat oud en jong zeg maar, samenwerken om dit gestalte te geven. Dus dat geeft ook een stuk cohesie, zeg maar. En dat mensen elkaar weer wat kennen en werken aan de gemeenschappelijke doel met een mooie uitkomst. 60% van alle kinderen die groeit op in grote steden. Ja, ze brengen 2 à 3 uur per dag door voor tv, tablet, computer.
Het allemaal tijd die ze niet buiten komen. Daarom vinden wij het als NVM heel belangrijk dat we dit soort leuke natuurontdekkingsplekken in de stad creëren. En dat is ook de reden dat we de Tiny Forest van Shubendu een heel leuk initiatief vinden om kinderen dicht bij hun in de buurt kennis te laten maken met de natuur.
Okay, I don't know how to stop this now. But okay, what are we doing? Stop share. No. Gonna have to reshare now. Learning how to do Zoom. Okay. Anyway, so that was, just kind of a kind of cool little way of unique method of placemaking. Kind of takes into importance community cohesion, participatory community building, while also kind of working on green space. And by working with different people are able to kind of build towards a common goal. It's going to be something that will continue to benefit the community. So, oops. Had anyone ever heard of that before, by the way? Kind of cool. But anyways, this is another example. So this is in Chicago. Artists have created a piece of public art where white people kind of publicly confront and express their ingrained racial biases and their own part in furthering racial power structures. So just, these are 2 examples of using public space to kind of challenge kind of some issues. So anyways, we don't have a huge amount of time. This is just kind of, showing the interconnections between everything. I want to break into 2 groups. We'll just do this like super briefly now. But in group 1, we'll discuss how homelessness, privatization of public space, and physical and mental health risks are kind of correlated and interconnected. In group 2, we'll discuss, as you can see, economic inequality, lack of green space, and housing density. Maybe this is a tall order in this short amount of time, but I just want to, think of maybe some creative place-based kind of like interventions, whether it be art-based, like in the example in Chicago, or less art-based, but creative nonetheless in the idea of the tiny forests. Does that make sense to people? Create a little potential, public space intervention. Yeah, Eric, mind helping me make 2 groups? and we'll just take like just a couple of minutes.
Awesome. So breakout room 1 was for what?
Homelessness, privatization of public space, and physical and mental health risks.
And group 2 was?
Economic inequality, lack of green space, and housing density.
Perfect.
So yeah, we only have a couple minutes left, but let's just take like 3 or 4 minutes doing this. I'd love to hear what people come up with. All right, so I know we're already at 3:03, and I'm sure people have other things that they would like to do. But if either, I only was in the one group, but if either group wants to, you can talk very briefly about what they thought about. I know whether it be kind of what we talked about or on the grander scale, that would be lovely.
I mean, our group, we were talking about economic equality and lack of green spaces. So we were talking about possibility of a community garden, because while gardening supplies and seeds can be really expensive, which would be the problem, having a kind of a community garden where everyone can kind of put their resources and energies into, it would create a really nice green space for those communities that often lack them.
Definitely. I feel like when so many community spaces right now exist like inside, and as we know, it's kind of tough to congregate together, and maybe something outside might to build community in this specific time as well. The other group, would you like to speak on anything?
Yeah, we found that all the issues come from pretty much the same thing, which is a lack of support, right? And it was sort of a systemic failure from the top down that created this. So it's going to be a systemic solution that can sort of cast a wider net over the actual problem instead of fixing each tiny issue of the homelessness crisis one by one. Like sheltering them is just one problem, right? Providing them naloxone or actually putting in measures to prevent or to deal with the mental health issues or addiction issues that go on in there. That's a whole other issue than funding homeless shelters. So we found that like whatever solution happens with public spaces, it has to be a preventative measure, you know, that sort of overhauls the entire cycle that leads to the homelessness crisis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's I think what you said is very true. Okay, well, yeah, I guess that is it for me, and I know I have kind of kept you guys here longer. Eric, do you have anything, or Trinity, do you have anything to add?
Just to say thank you to everybody for coming to our session today. It's it's always really nice to see everyone. And just a couple of reminders about the format of the course, and that's just it's summer, and we're not grading you. We're not giving you a report card at the end of this, and so when you're working through the course, it's important to remember that we're not looking for perfection, and we're not grading you or marking you. We really just want to talk about it, because this course is this whole flat program is for you guys, and it's to help you guys develop, and so you'll get the most out of it by putting the most in. And so if you see something that really interests you and you want to dig into that, go right ahead. Or you want to a broad overview of everything on top, you can do that as well. But I think there'll be a couple of discussions in the Conversation Circle Canvas course. Feel free to engage in those. Yeah, and just remember that we really don't want to make this a stressful experience for anybody. We just want to help you guys to be the best flat graduates you can be. So unless anyone else has anything to share, I think that's about it for today.
Have a nice weekend, everyone.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good, son.
Bye.
I will see you all next week, Monday.